So today we have Serena Nelapatee from Red Care Pharmacy, who's going to be hosting us on how to be product-led when you're tied by regulations. Before we continue, I'll tell you a bit about myself. My name is Nicole. As you can see, I'm the Business Development Manager over here at Product People. I have behind me about over 8 years of experience in sales and business development, doing all kinds of things from building up sales enablement, leading sales teams, doing expansions, both in building inside sales processes, as well as field market launches and country expansion, as well as government contracts and D2C marketing. And my background is in public health as well as psychology. And I have some experience teaching business English as well here in Germany. So I'll tell you just a bit about Product People and what we do. Our mission is to help companies discover and deliver great products faster. We empower product management community to share knowledge generously while managing the hands-on work of a product manager, owner, ops, or product leader on a fractional basis. We onboard fast, align teams, and deliver outcomes thanks to our 42 in-house employees, and we curate free events like this one-on-one for the biggest PM communities in Europe that has over 30,000 members. So let's do a quick icebreaker before we start the session. You can see here we have a question ready for you. As I said before, you can open up the slido.com and enter the number on the screen that you can see once more here. You can also scan the QR code. For others watching on other platforms, please feel free to share your answers in the comments. So the question is, do you encounter regulatory challenges in your role? So we have A, B, C, and D. Of course, please take a moment to, to fill that up. I'm curious to see what people would be answering, especially for this. I'll give it a few more moments to come in. Okay, that's interesting. Keep it coming. And I will say so far, it's looking like the overwhelming majority is agreeing that it is a daily challenge. So Serena, this is it's perfect to have you here.
My time to shine.
your time to shine. Let's see. So with that said, I'll be handing the mic over now to Serena, who will be speaking on regulations.
Perfect.
Serena,
then
I'll stop sharing my screen.
And I'll pick up.
There you go.
Okay. 1 second. Let me see if I can get this on full screen. It literally worked a second ago, so I'm hoping it's going to do it now. Let me just... Yes? See my presentation?
Yes, sorry, we were on mute. You got it.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, thank you for the introduction. Today I'll talk about being product-led when you're tied by regulations. And I know sometimes this can be a not so fun topic, and I tried my best to bring some fun to regulations. And so I'll take you through what at least I perceive as being product-led when you're tied by regulations. A little quick introduction about me. So my name is Serena. I always get asked this question, where am I from? Because I don't know, maybe I give off very unearthly vibes. I was born in India. I was raised in New Zealand, and I now am living in Germany. So I know personally and professionally what it means to lead without borders. I think it comes with being a bit audacious to move to a country that you've never been to before. I am ambitious. I'm a very intellectually curious explorer. What this means, I love to travel, I love to discover. I really am passionate about connecting people and reshaping norms. And I think the reshaping norms part and connecting people are really, really important when it comes to being product-led within regulations. It's hard to be successful otherwise. I am a joy seeker, so you'll see a lot of fun, I hope, in the next few minutes together. And I like to lead in, I think, a unique, colorful way. So that's probably also going to be present in the next few slides. I've been working in the digital health space for 8 years. I took a little break for a year when I worked in the foods tech industry, just to see how true my love for health was. Came back, it is my first and true love. So 7 years in product and 4 years in Berlin. So right now I work at Red Care Pharmacy as the lead product owner for e-prescriptions. I do have a little QR code here if you want to connect. Also, you can find me on LinkedIn later if you ever want to chat about any and all of these topics. So without further ado, starting with why. I mean, we are product people. I have a product owner background. It's where I like to start. So why this topic? So firstly, it was really to trying to define my own product leadership style. So when you want to be product led within a company, within a department, within yourself, within your team, for me, it is really to figure out how do I want to lead the products that I am responsible for, and how do I want to influence an organization to also be product led. And that's kind of where this journey started. And the second part, which I alluded to before, is my unyielding love for transforming access to health through tech. So my passion for healthcare started a long time ago in my teenage years. I actually also studied public health as one of my degrees and kind of fell into the tech part ever since. The passion, I think the infectious nature of how you can transform something so old, like the healthcare system that existed in so many forms over thousands of years, seeing it now transform again with the advent of technology, I think it just sparks not just my curiosity, but a lot of my joy. So that's why. And with health, there is regulations. They kind of come together. And that's kind of why we'll talk a bit about it today. So what is being product led? And there's lots of different, I think, definitions of it. And today I'll kind of give in my spin on it. So in my humble opinion, being product led is not short for product decides, which is, I think, how often it might come across and in some ways scare the rest of the business and the company, from marketing to sales to country management to business decisions, that the product owners decide what happens. And I think this conception really needs to change, where it's the product leads. So your product in your company, that's what leads. And here, I think what's crucial for being successful, being product led as a product owner, as a lead product owner, in whatever way you are impacting product, is your ego really has to be at the door. You have to be humble and curious and open for where the product takes you, what your customers need, where your business wants to go. And for me, this happens in two ways. So one, it's listening to the customer. So you need to be customer centric. And by being customer centric, it's seeking value or seeking to create value for customers. And here, hoping that their satisfaction leads to business growth. That's one part of it. So listening to the customer, asking them questions, hearing what they have to say, what they like, what they dislike. This helps you understand what problems to solve and how to prioritize these problems, so you know you're working on the right things. And while we listen to the customer, it's also important to factor in that the customer doesn't know the strategy. So the customer is not aware of new regulations, upcoming regulations, what you are required to do. They might want something that actually goes contrary to the focus of the business, or even the focus of what you are allowed or not allowed to do. So listening to the customer is really one part of it. And to me, the second and really important part is listening to the business. So this is about being growth driven in balance with being customer centric. So looking at the product as the engine for growth. So here you're going to bet that if you build and develop a really excellent product experience, this naturally will lead to more users, higher adoption, and consequently more revenue. So this is where it's really being customer centric, but also growth driven. And this is where you can lead your product in a really smart and successful way. And the ultimate goal, in my opinion, about being product-led is then to impact culture within an organization. And this is where, even for departments and teams that are not directly implementing or working on the product, you bring in the customer voice and the growth-driven aspect to your product, to conversations, to a roundtable, and overall then change conversations within a company where everyone is talking about how to improve the product and how to deliver value to the customer, not just within a product department. And I included this gift because I know this is going to be an incredibly tough balancing act. And I think that's the the challenge and the fun in being a product owner. Second part, understanding the landscape of regulations. And so I'm really going to focus on online pharma in Germany because that's kind of my area of specialization with e-prescriptions. And it's also a cool space to be in right now because there's a lot happening regulation-wise and movement within the market. So I put in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in here because, I don't know, in some ways we try to save the turtles try to save us. Let's have a look behind Michelangelo for what I think are the 4 key regulations that we have for online pharma in Germany. So we have the Digital Healthcare Act, and this is within Germany to facilitate digital innovation just within the healthcare sector. This is extremely high level. So it's all kinds of technology that gets regulated by this act. So data protection, privacy, security, anything patient data related. So this is a very all-encompassing healthcare act. I am not a lawyer, so I would highly suggest you speak to someone from legal before you go into details, but it's really important to know all the regulations that could impact your particular product. The second one behind Leonardo is digital healthcare application regulations. And this one impacts us as a company a little bit more in terms of our product, because here it's really the digital healthcare apps that are prescribed by doctors or are reimbursed by insurance companies in Germany. So the quality, safety here, the data security of these apps and these any particular web app products, this really regulates how you can set them up, their functionality, where you can store data, all of these things. So behind Raphael, the third one here is the German Medicines Act, and this is basically governs us as an online pharmacy. So how can we operate in terms of sales, the distributions of pharmaceuticals online? How can we receive prescriptions? How can we deliver prescriptions? Here you need a specific license as well to be able to function this way and have a pharma team of real pharmacists. So even though we have an online pharmacy, you have real pharmacists who look at review, process, and check prescriptions for interactions, for dosages, to make sure everything is compliant, that if there's something weird on your prescription, we talk to your doctor that prescribed the medication for you. If we need to check if you're allergic to something, this is where you have pharma advisory as well. So this is all part of making sure you can function as an online pharmacy. And last but not least is the data protection regulation. So this, I think, affects a lot of different companies, lots of e-commerce, lots of tech products as well, to make sure that everything you do is compliant. So you protect customer data, and here we're also talking about patient data. So this is like next levels of making sure everything is safe, that there is no unauthorized access, that we prevent any data loss, any damage to data, how information gets shared across platforms, APIs, who is talking to what system. All of this really follows really strict, stringent rules. But at the end of the day, you're trying to really protect consumer data and patient data. And I think here the utmost security is of importance. So that's just really 4 high level. There's so many more regulations you can go through, but I think we understand the landscape that there is a lot for pharma. So what is the challenge of regulation? So the first one is compliance and certification. So especially with the topic of e-prescriptions, because this is so new to not only Germany, but Europe, there are lots of precedences that are not yet set, that we are setting, creating, discovering. And here I have someone trying to shoot a moving target, because in some ways this is what it feels like. With compliance certification challenges, you have to interpret regulations and guidance that's set. You have a trial and error, you have to negotiate, you have to make sure you are following everything to the most compliant, but at the same time, you follow like stringent certification processes, which are expensive. They also have particular people requiring particular expertise involved. You need to then also source knowledge on very specific compliance topics and put it all together into a solution that then hopefully a consumer understands at the end of the day. So this undertaking is also is a challenge, and it requires the effort of so many teams outside of product, looking at tech, looking at legal, logistics, business, the whole shebang. How are we doing for time? Just double checking. Also then the integration of e-prescription. So when we integrated e-prescriptions in there, we had to also overhaul our systems to then be compliant with receiving prescriptions and sending information. We also had to be creating customer accounts, what information we were allowed to store, show the customer, not show the customer, how do we prevent different people from accessing it. So this was also quite a difficult undertaking to make sure that technically everything was wired to work, but that it also reflected all the different regulations that we had in place. And last but not least is market access and competition. So most often you need to be compliant, have your certification, then integrate all the software, build all the tools, and do a bunch of other steps before you can even then release to production, get access to the market, and then you have different levels of competition. So right now with online pharmacy, we also have local pharmacies. So we have different spaces that we are trying to access the market and then also compete. And here it's what rules are we dealing with? And this is kind of why I use this picture here. A lot of the time the guidance is it's interpretive. So you need to understand how you would take a piece of legislation or regulation and then convert it into a feature set. And you also have legislative, which is a bit more directive, that you must do something. And a lot of the time you're trying to figure out which is with which. And here we had so much back and forth trying to understand how to interpret regulations into requirements. And I think this is the biggest challenge. And because it's super new, I thought of the sentence here. So in the quest to be product-led, we often hit this regulatory wall. And here we have to innovate. And we have to innovate in a way that doesn't only satisfy our customer needs. So we then are compliant, but provide a good experience for our customers, but also navigates the shifting labyrinth of e-pharma regulations. So here, a lot of these regulations moved as we were developing and we were trying to figure things out. And here, as every product team will understand, when you have constant scope change, it makes it really difficult to stay focused, stay in budget, and meet your deadlines. But this was a challenge that we, I think, managed so far quite well. And the impact on product development. So for me, I would say mindset is everything. So I hope it comes across that I'm a generally quite optimistic and positive person. And so when you are faced with regulatory challenges, when you need to jump kind of through hoops to get certification, you really need to have a mindset that it is possible to get through it and be positive that you need to work at it. If you don't have this growth mindset, this product-led mindset about doing things as best as you can for the customer or the product, then you will be really boxed into creating something that is based on a requirement that could be from a legislation that is really old. It doesn't really meet the needs of the current customer market. So here I would say the first impact is on innovation. And I really like this quote from Steve Jobs, which is innovation is sometimes saying no or saying no to 1,000 things. And here, when regulation says you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, then you have to really prioritize and sharpen your focus to think about what you can do and craft solutions that aren't just new, but that also fit within these rules. So in some ways, it can be really discouraging because you feel maybe a bit confined. But here it's about looking at a problem from a different angle, looking at the box that you're in and how you can craft it into something different. And here it's quality. So regulations often also set a high bar, especially in the space of e-pharma, when you're looking at patient data, consumer data. And sometimes it feels like hoops to jump through, but they're also a really solid foundation you can work from to build a product that really looks out for the customer as well. So it does push you to get creative. And at the end, the goal is always not to just do something that passes the test of meeting regulations, but also gains the trust of the people you are building for. Fourth one is data. So here, when it comes to regulations, a data-driven approach isn't just it's not just ticking the boxes that are written here. It's really about making sure you're going to build something that works for the customer too. So when you have regulations, sometimes they're also open-ended, so you can meet those regulations with different requirements. And here it is really imperative to use data to back it up. I think any PO knows the value of having data-driven decision-making, but in a environment that's regulatory and these puzzle pieces are changing and moving, you really do rely on data to ensure you understand the environment in which your consumer will respond to these regulations, and then what the expectation is and how to meet that as well. So it's tough, but then if you can find a way to understand your consumer and the data behind it, you could really create a experience that is easy and even enjoyable for the consumer to use at the end of the day. That is also hopefully compliant. And last but not least, it's collaboration. So in this tight framework of regulations, it really, really helps to talk to everyone to get them on the same page, because regulations and the way you put them into requirements is sometimes often interpretive. It's really important that the scope of your project, your topic, your product is clear from tech to the customer service desk, so everyone understands the implication positively and negatively of what you're going to be building, why you're not doing something, and why you absolutely have to do something. This way you're all pulling together, because quite easily with regulations, it can be that we have to do it. And if you take the time to really understand the why and communicate this, then the product also shapes in a way that stands out. It's safe, it's more user-friendly, it does what you intend or supposed to do, but then also fits within this regulatory framework. And hopefully, if you're all pulling the same direction, yes, you bring different perspectives and points to it, but at least you're on the same page in terms of moving the product forward. And strategies, last but not least, this is where I said mindset really matters. And when you are working within a really strict regulatory framework, if you keep your mindset also quite regulatory and fixed, you will really struggle. So here it's about having a growth mindset. So you have these set of rules. How can you work around them or work with them? And you need to have this growth mindset. So the first thing I would say is embrace the constraints. Like, don't fight it. It's there. If you want to fight it, I think that's a whole other path to go down. But here with being product-led, it's really about embracing the constraints and to see how you can push creative thinking. And instead of seeing limits, see them as like fixed points. So these regulations are fixed points that you can innovate around or with responsibly. And this is, I honestly don't know where I heard this, or maybe it was from a movie or something, but it really did stick with me. If you hit a wall, find a way to turn it into a door. And within this regulatory framework, there are often walls, and you either need to negotiate, understand, and find creative ways to turn it into an opportunity. And then it's cross-functional alignment. So you need to establish strong cross-functional alignments and also a high trust environment, because lots of this regulation is open to interpretation, or it's not really easily understood the impact to the customer, the product. Here, I think as a product owner, you need to forge high trust relationships with stakeholders, and this really does hinge on having a deep grasp on the regulatory environment and its impact. Its impact to business, its impact to the customer, its impact to sales, its impact to the future growth, maybe its impact to market expansion. So here it's necessary to not just do what the regulations say, but to understand the regulations and the environment in which it has an impact. Then you can also make good product decisions, and also make this transparent communication amongst teams, so everyone understands the landscape and you're pulling together to deliver something that's compliant and user-focused. And last on this, I would say strategy is being customer-centric in your compliance. So here is kind of what I said earlier without being product-led. You want to be customer-centric and also thinking about growth innovation. So constantly iterating based on user feedback, focus on features and services that you know drive business growth that are within the regulatory framework. So your regulatory framework will also give you indications of what feature set you can and cannot work with. And here, finding out which resonate with your customers and how to push those forward would be really helpful. So a little bit about Redcare and e-prescriptions. This is where I currently work as the lead product owner on the e-prescription topic, which I think I joined in at a lucky period. One thing that we demonstrated was adaptability. So Redcare has successfully integrated the EGK system, which is the EGK is for the electronic prescriptions for publicly insured people within Germany, and we have so far boosted our e-prescription use. We've received our first e-prescription ever back in June 2022. And to give you an idea, I joined Redcare in March 2022, so it's kind of fortuitous timing. And since then, and these numbers are mostly reflecting this year because it became mandatory in Germany to have e-prescriptions at the beginning of this year. There's been about 140 million e-prescriptions dispensed, and we're kind of averaging at like 2 million e-prescriptions per day in Germany. So within this regulatory framework of e-prescriptions, we can then see that there's also been some rapid adoption. So as I mentioned, there's been a surge in e-prescription issuance since January of this year as a result of this mandatory use. So that's also indicating a bit of healthcare system approval and adoption. Around 80,000 medical institutions are issuing e-prescriptions. And then we also see more of it across patients and usages. Our solutions, so we are customer-centric in our solutions. So we do offer the ability to scan and upload your e-prescription. And we're currently very diligently developing and testing our own EGK NFC-enabled solution. And we are aligning it with Gematik, who are the regulatory bodies here in Germany around the e-prescription topic. And hopefully we have this coming soon. There's not a lot I can say about this topic, except that it's very exciting, it's very innovative, and it's a really great example of how within the regulatory environment you can use tech, be innovative, and soon to see applications within Germany. And at Redcare, part of our strategic growth is to embrace these regulatory changes to stay ahead. And this helps us enhance our service offerings. And the ultimate goal is to establish leadership within Europe's e-pharmacy sector, with Germany being one of the key countries that we will be doing this in. And just as a bit of backstory, that's why the company was founded 20 years ago. And that's an indication of how long sometimes it takes to work through regulatory frameworks. It can be some time, but you really do have to chip away. And now it's quite an exciting time, at Redcare. So the TLDR of what I wanted to say is being product-led really does start with yourself as a product person, centering conversations on customer value and growth drivers. I truly do believe innovation can happen within boundaries, especially if you inspect, learn, adapt, and repeat it. I cannot stress how important it is to repeat. If you just do it once, you don't learn a whole lot. The more often you repeat, the smarter you get, the more you learn, the better you can be the next time you're working within regulatory frameworks. And the digital health space is awesome. If you ever want to nerd out on the topic, please let me know. Let's have a coffee. I would be happy to catch up on this. And that's all I have. So thank you. I will maybe stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, no problem. You can stop and I will resume sharing. Give me just a moment. Let's see. There we go. Okay, and we're back here. So with that, Serena, thank you very much for sharing your insights. So this was a very informative session. I'm sure that those of us who are attending today will be better equipped now to navigate the Digital Services Act in their day-to-day work. We're now going to start the Q&A session. So please begin considering what questions you have for Serena for this session, given all that's been discussed. Please share your questions by sending them either in the chat here or by commenting on other platforms. You can see here we have the Slido still open once more. While we wait for questions to roll in, I'm going to share a little bit about Product People. So I'll start with some use cases about when to engage us. Our interim product managers and owners cover parental leaves, scale your product management team quickly, and lead key initiatives while bridging the gap until a full-time employee is able to join. We cover parental leaves for about 3 to 12 months or for unstaffed positions. And with us, you can get temporary help to drive product discovery and delivery for a deadline or create big impact in a short time. We can coach your product management teams to reach their full potential through streamlining processes from 0 to 1, including product ops and program management. We can also help you through long big discovery to uncover the next impactful initiative or product. You can see here, these are some of our B2C clients, some names you'll probably recognize like Zalando, Douglas, Freenow, Tier, and others. And over here, when it comes to B2B clients, we've worked with companies like World Health Organization, Ometria, Sastrify, Elucidat, as you can see here as well. It's worth noting that regarding our stats, we've supported over 200 cross-functional teams and 70 clients from Series A startups to publicly listed companies. We have 42 product leaders on staff and product managers in-house to deliver high-quality services to our clients. And we take pride in having 62% women in our team with 66% in leadership roles. Here you can see this is our wonderful and diverse team of product experts. They're great to work with, which I can personally testify to. And that brings us around here to our final Slido. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at some questions which have started to roll in. We have here, as someone shares, they love the insights, but want to know what are some practical things that you do to keep teams motivated to build customer-centric solutions within legal limitations. I'll give you the mic.
Sorry, recovering from a cough. I'll be with you in a second.
Take your time. Sip of water is good.
Yes, so I had it on hand just in case. So the question was about how to keep teams motivated.
Let me unmute. Yes. So where were we? Yes. So practical things to do to keep teams motivated while building customer-centric solutions within legal limitations.
So yes, on this, I think the key part is about I think it's just transparency. I'm so sorry. Okay, now I'm back. So the transparency around the regulatory environment. So here, I think, I mean, within Redcare and in the role that I've had, it's really about explaining to teams why things are happening the way they're happening. And a lot of the time, the regulations are out of your control. And I think the more transparent you are that this environment is dynamic, things are out of your control, compliance goalposts can shift and change. And I think the worst thing you can say is we're doing it because we have to do it. I think this really destroys the creativity within teams. Trying as a good product person, if you're able to take the regulation, turn it into requirements, understand how this is going to benefit to your customer, and then explain the benefit to the product and to the business for doing so, or even not doing so, the buy-in from teams is quite strong. If you come in with you have to do it because the law said so, or so-and-so said so, that is the most demotivating thing that you can give to a team.
Okay, thank you for that. We're going to go to the next one then here. What has been the biggest personal or professional learning that you've had from your time in this space, especially being that it is such a nuanced domain?
I think it's, for me, I think that's why I also mentioned that gaining trust of your stakeholders is quite important. It's understanding the regulations and the impact on different parts of business. So within an online pharmacy, you have the business side of things, you have the pharmaceutical side, you have the logistics side, and regulations impact all parts of the business. And sometimes within product, we really do focus on our particular part of the product. When you really do take the time to understand how regulations impact the work of all other departments and bring them closer to decisions on the product, you really do gain their trust. And I think one of my personal highlights here is then getting the trust of these departments to work closer to building a better overall, bringing their perspectives so they can build a better overall product. And here the customer voice is important from the product side, listening to the voices of every other department that's also impacted by these regulations is really important. This is why I said your ego really needs to be at the door and you have to listen, because there's so many nuanced levels of regulation impact. It's not just on the customer side, but it does impact from your customer service team to the people who read the prescriptions, to the people who are involved in purchasing products. Everything is regulated in this industry. So you really do need to understand how this one piece of informational legislation can impact on those various levels.
All right, thank you for that. Now we have a few more questions coming in. So the next one, how do you decide on which features to ship in a release, as releasing in a regulated space often comes with a lot of barriers like documentation, etc.?
So there's a combination. So with Redcare, we are an e-commerce platform and we're also an online pharmacy. So there are things that you can ship that are within the regulated space, but most regulations don't tell you which features to prioritize and when to ship them and what your customers want. So here, this is more pure product work. Regulations give you a guideline or a framework on generally what you can and cannot do or what you absolutely must do. And within this, there are also consequences. So some regulations are guidelines or suggestions, and some are hard legislations that if you don't do, there are really intense fines, and there are levels to all of these things. So one part of regulation is to also critically read through it and understand it and see if there is a feature impact here. And more often than not, it is not going to tell you what your customer wants and which feature to prioritize. And this is where regulations is one part. Listening to the business, listening to the customer is also a very important part. I wouldn't say in my experience regulation told me exactly which feature to ship when. Yeah, that's generally PO.
All right, let's go to the next one. Thank you for that. In which ways have customer feedback and regulatory requirements intersect? So what is the intersection between that customer feedback and the regulations?
I would probably use the example within Germany because that's currently the main context in which I'm operating right now. And within pharma, the population you're targeting is more elderly. And you are targeting an elderly population with a tech solution that is not super well understood. I don't know what your experience is with. Maybe I don't know if you have elderly parents or family members, how they understand data privacy, especially when it comes to the patient information, is usually on the side of being a bit more fearful. And when it comes to feedback, even if we don't go directly into customer feedback and NPS, you want to ensure that you are offering healthcare. So you're going to give some sort of trust. So you do want to indicate you follow, you want to give a level of compliance and quality in what you're offering in terms of your product. And here, we know that our customers love when we do the interactions check, when we check their history to make sure that whatever their past orders with us are, we are making sure that it's safe. That if there is something within their medications or something that we think is a bit off, our pharma team will call and they will actually have phone conversations with our customers. So these things we know that customers value because within healthcare, it's very personal. People are not super health literate when it comes to dosages, types of medications. So those things become really important, especially when you're online and you're not talking to somebody when you're placing your purchase. You don't have a doctor in front of you or a pharmacist in front of you. So we know at Redcare that they do trust us when they send us a prescription. And that trust comes with quality, comes with compliance. It comes with making sure that we're doing kind of our utmost to make sure patient data safety is also taken care of. And I know it's a bit of a, not directly like we built this feature because this customer said this, but I don't think it's ever that simple.
All right, thank you for that answer. We have a few more that are rolling in. So the next one, outside of your own product, what are some of the exciting things happening in pharma or med tech that people can look out for that, or that you're excited about?
Outside of,
I'm curious about that as well.
yes, outside of pharma or outside of like the current product. I mean, there's lots of different things happening. Yeah.
I can read again. Yeah. So she just said, or the person had said, exciting things happening in pharma or med tech in general to either keep eyes out for, or something that excites you in that realm.
Yeah. Okay. I think unfortunately, I'm very focused on pharma specifically, but what I can talk to is about other markets. So recently within Redcare, we have a joint venture with MediService, which is in Switzerland, and there we are looking at how prescriptions work within Switzerland. There are also other countries within Europe that I personally, on a personal level, I'm very interested in what is happening in the e-pharma space there. I mean, I think within Europe, this whole e-pharma topic started in the early 2000s, and this is when the original laws and regulations came out. Now, 20 years, and at the time when it came out, there was no country doing anything. So there's no precedent set, and everyone was kind of like, each country needs to figure out for themselves what works and what doesn't work. And that's kind of how you have a bit of fragmentation on how each country approaches e-prescription. And now, over 20 years later, precedents have been set, and it's very interesting for me to see how each country has its own take on it. And if at any point there will be kind of an EU rule on if e-prescriptions are a thing that all countries should do, I don't know. That would be my own, like, out of curiosity. I don't know if it'll happen in my lifetime, but I'm curious if that discussion ever comes up again.
Okay, thank you. So the next question here, is there an example where a regulatory constraint led to a creative solution or innovation in a product?
Let me think. I would say if I would use the example of e-prescription. So when e-prescriptions first came out, it was this piece of paper with a QR code, and this was kind of how it was used, and it's still the way that you can use it. So right now, you can get a paper prescription from your doctor that has a QR code that you can scan and upload and redeem your prescription. And here, I think the pushback was not necessarily from the customer perspective, but more from doctors who really wanted a full digital solution. And a paper prescription here was not considered full digital solution because you just have paper replacing paper. So here there was a regulation that said we want to have digital prescription. The way in which the solution came out was we met the requirement, and I say we, I mean everybody working on this topic. But as a result, on this questioning and challenging and trying to see how to make this even better, now we have a solution where your e-prescription goes directly onto your health insurance card. And this is a more digital solution. Now we don't have this intermediate piece of paper. And I think this is just one way that in a short period of time, innovation happened from written to QR code to health insurance card. So I am very curious to see what the next step of this would be.
All right. And our next question, how do you balance the need to comply with regulations with the goal of being innovative and product-led?
For me, the balance is the fun challenge of it. And how you do it, if there was a recipe for it, I would write a book. But really, I would highly recommend having this growth mindset. If you are really fixed in this is a regulation, this is what I'm, some cases you have to do it, so you really do have to suck it up and do it. But it's really, if you have this mental fortitude or ability to really see a different way to fulfill the requirement, because there are multitudes of ways to fulfill a regulatory requirement. Very rarely is it you must only do this one thing. There you can have innovation. And healthcare is so heavily regulated. There are lots of rules. There's also lots of space. If you see regulations as fixed points to either innovate around or with, or connecting them together to produce something even a greater customer experience, it's extremely possible. There is so much room for innovation in this space. Regulations do provide you with a frame, but they don't limit you from really doing anything.
Okay. Now, let's see. How do you keep up with the new regulations? That's another question we have here.
Gotta be really good at stalking. Lots of reading, lots and lots of reading. Yeah, if you don't like reading, this is going to be a very I mean, maybe try turn it into an audiobook, but that, and I would say be BFFs with your legal team. So within your organization, whoever your data protection officers are, whoever is responsible for legal, discuss everything with them. Ideas, thoughts, get their first indications of things. It's really important. And also what we have experts on these particular topics. Like within each regulation, you need to find somebody who has specific subject matter knowledge on one really specific, you must have this piece of patient data, otherwise you cannot proceed with step 2, and to understand all of those things. So finding people and reading and talking and reading and talking, that is 90% of the job.
Yeah. All
and
right. Yeah, I understand that. It looks like the other couple questions that we had are pretty much variations of questions that have already come in. So I'm going to clear those out. And I'm just going to give this second if we have any other questions that pop up, or giving a moment to let the last questions trickle in. I'll share this screen as well in that time, and also mention that we are hiring, and we have also associate PM and PM roles that are open. You can apply through the link on the screen, and I think this will also be shared in the chat as well. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe to our newsletter, where we can share the insights of our experience about product management as well. If there's any last questions, they can trickle in now. But it looks like we are, aside from that, it looks like we are done.
Awesome.
So with that, I will say thank you so much, Serena, for your time and for sharing your knowledge generously here with all of us and with our product community.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. And again, this will also be posted up on our YouTube channel, and it will be found on LinkedIn as well for anyone who wants to repeat and watch over any of the information and tips that Serena has shared here today. Thank you all.
Thank you. Cheers.